A woman takes off her bra in protest against wearing bras. San Francisco, United States, 1969. California Surfer Girls, 1964. Shakira, 1991. Eruption of Tolbachik Volcano, Kamchatka, 1975. Deep-sea diver with an umbrella, 1949. Aleister Crowley dressed as Osiris as part of occult rituals for the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn Secret Society, circa 1900. Santa Claus on an Airplane, 1921. Study of the new Saturn II vacuum cleaner model, manufactured at the Vilnius Electric Welding Equipment Plant, 1972. The T-800 model on the set of the film The Terminator, 1984. Noisemakers, sound effects artists for General Electric Radio. Broadcasts, WGY Schenectady, New York, 1925. In 1943, during World War II, the First Lady of the United States and the First Lady of China met at the White House. Since the First Lady of China was educated in the United States, they spoke to each other in English. Research chemist and author Lionel Dahmer, father of confessed serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, with wife Sherry, Jeffrey's stepmother, standing outside of Columbia Correctional Institute where Jeffrey is imprisoned, 1994. A wedding couple of 12-year-old children. Seoul, Korea, the last year of the Joseon period in Korean history, 1910. Ladies at the Races, Hippodrome de Longchamp, Paris, 1908. Audrey Hepburn with her son. View of demonstrators seated in a circle on the grass as they clap along with a guitarist during an anti-Vietnam War protest, Washington, D.C. on May 9, 1970. A girl on roller skates advertises products, 1900s. Frank Sinatra. People wave and salute as Robert F. Kennedy's funeral train travels past, rolling from New York City to Washington, D.C. on June 8, 1968. The Girl's Bedroom, 1975. FBI agents carry Vietnam War draft resistor, Robert Whittington Eaton, 25-year-old, from a dwelling in Philadelphia on April 17, 1969, where Eaton had chained himself to 13 young men and women. Water skiing inventor Ralph Samuelson in the 1920s. Anita Wood and Elvis Presley. Soviet cosmonauts Georgy Beregovoy and Pavel Popovich present a hunting rifle as a gift to Neil Armstrong. June 1, 1970. Military police, reinforced by Army troops, throw back anti-war demonstrators as they tried to storm a mall entrance doorway at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. on October 21, 1967. The Beatles' final concert, which was played on the roof of Apple Recording Studios in London on January 30, 1969. Women wearing masks against a snowstorm. Photo by Yuri Sadovnikov, 1968, Sakhalin Island, Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. American dancer of the 1960s. Giuseppe Zangara, after his arrest in custody of the police. The one on the right is holding the revolver used by Zangara, who attempted to assassinate the President-elect of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt, on February 15, 1933, under the mistletoe, 1937. A South Vietnamese Marine, severely wounded in a Viet Cong ambush, is comforted by a comrade in a sugarcane field at Duc Hoa, about 12 miles from Saigon, on August 5, 1963. Imperial Army soldiers learn to walk with their new limbs in a Budapest hospital, World War I. A day at the office on the early computers day. Ronald Reagan performs with Cloris Leachman on an episode of Nash Air Flight Theater, 1950. In 1985, a Colombian found herself trapped in a volcanic mudflow, her body submerged up to her waist. Despite the efforts of rescuers, she succumbed to her situation after enduring 60 hours of suffering. Tupac Shakur hugging a hound dog in the early 1990s. Lucy Liu at the Emmy Awards, 1999. Legendary composer and conductor Leonard Bernstein plugs his ears while the Beatles perform in 1965. Sigourney Weaver and Alan Rickman on the set of Galaxy Quest, 1999. Clint Eastwood. Beta Beta, Chapter Kappa Sigma, University of Richmond, 1972. Supermodel and iconic figure of the 60s and 70s, Vera Gottliebe Anna von Leendorf. Oldsmobile Incas concept, 1986, by Ital Design. The steering controls were inspired by an aeronautic joystick and by market research. Nikola Tesla in his laboratory in Colorado Springs, Colorado, United States, 1899. NASA's first female astronaut candidates, 1978. Men in Harlem gather in front of a shop to listen to the radio, 1940. Royal Fish-Shaped Boat, India, 1857. World War I soldier fitted with a welding arm so he could still help the war effort. Pedestrians cross the destroyed Hue Bridge in Hue, Vietnam, in an undated photo. Young lady posing with a very early Lawson motorcycle model with a top speed of 19 kilometers per hour, circa 1897. Young Samurai Training Course, Tokyo Empire of Japan, 1930. (1996), the scene at Canary Wharf in East London after the IRA detonated a bomb. Walt Disney reading to his grandson. Nancy Reagan on Mr. T's lap. Vietnamese women from the local militia Tu Ve, communist movement of Ho Chi Minh. They parade in the streets of Hanoi just before the insurrection of December 20th, 1946, led by Ho Chi Minh against colonialism. A car is tested for resistance to lightning strikes by applying a discharge of 3 million volts, 1942. "18-year-old Sophia Loren photographed by Giuseppe Palmas, 1953. Elvis Presley fans witnessing him on stage during the mid-1950s. Flood in Venice, February 1974. Hungarian pilot flying with death, his close companion, during World War I. Prisoners crush cobblestones and sew prison clothes. Robben Island, South Africa, 1964. Dutch resistance members celebrate when they hear the news of Adolf Hitler's death. May 1945. Photograph of a fallen soldier from the Battle of the Somme in 1916, taken by German soldier Walter Kleinfeld. Sharon Stone and Ellen Barkin tease 19-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio at the Vanity Fair Oscars party in 1994. In 1889, a settler in Guthrie, Oklahoma, searches for land to build a home. Pope John Paul II fishing, 1950s. American Music Center, 1954. Nine-year-old quadruplets in Edmonton, London, happily bouncing along the road on their pogo sticks, 1958. American pathologist and medical examiner Frederick Zugab conducts an experiment to determine the cause of Christ's death, 1984. John Franklin Candy, 1980. Leonardo DiCaprio and his father, 1990s. Police officers with Belvedere State Bank employees during a reenactment of the bank robbery, 1923. Adriano Celentano. A trio of New York showgirls, 1921. One of the rare pictures of Nikola Tesla in his old age reading the Serbian newspaper, Vreme. Frederick C. Branch, the first African-American to be commissioned in the United States Marine Corps, has his second lieutenant's bars pinned on by his wife, 10th of November 1945. Survivors and shocked residents of Hiroshima gather in the street 10 minutes after the atomic bomb, 1945. Tour de France, 1948. Senator John F. Kennedy is mobbed by well-wishers carrying Kennedy banners on his arrival at Los Angeles International Airport on July 9, 1960, to personally lead his drive for the Democratic presidential nomination. A young South Vietnamese woman covers her mouth as she stares into a mass grave where victims of a reported Viet Cong massacre were being exhumed near Dien Bai village east of Hue in April of 1969. The head of the great commander and king of Sweden, Charles XII, 1682-1718, with a hole from a fatal bullet received during the siege of the Fredriksten fortress in Norway. Michael Jackson, 1972. Steve Martin. Active from 1895 to 1896, the Rufus Buck Gang, composed of Black and Creek Indian members, committed a series of crimes in Indian Territory near Oklahoma. National Park Service employee James Hudson uses a cloth-wrapped stick to clean Lincoln's ear at the Lincoln Memorial in 1987. Sigourney Weaver photographed by Helmut Newton, 1983. The crew of the USS Texas with a kitten and puppy, the ship's mascots, circa 1900. Claimed daguerreotype early photography of Joseph Smith, founder of Mormonism, 1844. Tsar Cannon, 1883. A popular 19th century treatment using electricity to address various conditions, often controversially. Failed robber and lynch victim, George Parrott. Supply warehouses and dock facilities at this East Coast port explode after para-demolition bombs were dropped from the 5th Air Force's B-26 Invader light bombers, Wonsan, North Korea, 1951. 3 people sit on the roof of a claim shack somewhere on the Great Plains in the American Midwest, early 1910s. The structure, partly walled in tar paper, served to lay claim to a land parcel, around 160 acres, farmed by a homesteader, Salvador Dali, at an autograph session, photographed with a fisheye lens. Freddie Mercury, 1987. Spring in Arkansas, United States, 1953. A Prisoner in Georgia, 1932. Prince Charles with his bodyguard. At the time, the heir to the throne was studying at Cambridge. To prevent his classmates from bothering him too much, he was required to be accompanied by a bodyguard. Gold mined by prospectors, Australia, 1851. Trike in the late 1890s with pedals and rudimentary transmission and directional by a lever, 1890. Leftist Iranian students calling for armed resistance against the Pahlavi government. United States, 1970s. People climb onto the Berlin Wall the morning after the announcement by the East German government that they would start granting exit visas to East Germans wanting to go to the West on November 10, 1989. Vacationers on the grounds of a sanatorium in the Magadan region, 1968. Ford executives select colors for 1953 cars from 76 scale models. Gary Oldman in makeup and Francis Ford Coppola on the set of Dracula, 1992. Armed revolutionary standing guard in front of the United States Embassy in Tehran during the Iran hostage crisis, November 1979. Elvis Presley. Portrait artist Anna Ladd gave new faces to World War I veterans. One-man band, China, 1960s. Princess Anna, later Sarah Forbes Bonetta, goddaughter to Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, taken to England as a child supposedly after a kingdom war. Karen Lynn Gorney and John Travolta, 1977. King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy, observing field operation during World War I, 1915. Ernesto Che Guevara, driving an American car with his second wife, Aleda March, on their wedding day in Havana, 1959. As a result of pilot error, a transport plane dropped a load intended for the Women's Battalion to the fighters. Southern Rhodesia, January 1980. Paris, circa 1900. Icelandic singer Björk and Maxim Gorky, Moscow, 1989. Miss World USA Lyda Carter, also known as Wonder Woman, Miss San Diego Priscilla Barnes, and Miss Maryland Betty Jo Grove, with Bob Hope at the National Naval Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland, 1972. Elvis Presley worked as a truck driver before becoming the king of rock and roll. Lunch break, 1950s. (1971). Pedestrians walk past soldiers crouched on a street corner. Conflicts broke out in Belfast in reaction to the British government's August 9th decision to make it possible to send alleged members of the IRA to prison without a trial. A woman biker with her motorcycle, 1920s. Tibetan Greeting with Tongue Out, 1955. Joe Toyota in 1958, later known as Raquel Welch, before she was reconstructed by Hollywood.